In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of lessons from my mother. We are on lesson number 28, gradually plowing through um, each lesson, and eventually these will all be collected together in the form of a book, hopefully. And I hope that me and Mama can co-author it and have it published once it's done, within a year after that. That would be really nice that we write a book together. So lesson number 28 is something that has been very important to me and has taken me a while to to understand. Um, and that is to perform where it matters. And I will give a few examples of that, and then I'll explain or discuss the logic further. So when I was in school, particularly primary school and even up to secondary school, um, I was quick to pick up facts that were mentioned in class. I was always playing around with other kids, teasing people or playing around, whatever. Um, and I would learn things very, very quickly. And when the teacher would ask us, uh, thank you. Thank you, Samra Khan. Yes, absolutely. That's the goal. It's also my way of venerating her and showing her my love, because she's the most important person in my life. Wait, what's happening to my sound? Oh, sounds okay. Yeah. So, um, but thank you, Samra Khan. Um, uh, um, so, in class, I would pick up information very quickly. And when the teacher would ask like a recap or ask questions, I'd be the first one. Oh, I know, I know, I know. I'd be that kid. You can tell even today that I would be that child. When it came to exam time, I wouldn't score the top mark. I would be in the top 10, mostly top 5, top 10 sometimes, but never the top mark. And the person who would score the top marks, or the top 3 typically, would be some of the quietest people in the world. And they'd just be studying and they'd be performing better than me. And as somebody who's incredibly competitive, even today, it would really annoy me, disappoint me, and I'd come and complain to my mother. And she would tell me to study harder, work harder, and I did. And then this would happen again sometimes. And then when she realized that I was doing this, she said, look, you are contributing your energies in a place where it's not necessary. You want the teacher to like you, and you want your classmates to be awed by you. Like, wow, Ali knows everything. That's what you want, right? And as a child, you don't learn denial so well. So you're like, yes, that's exactly what I want. We don't try to preserve our ego at that age. So I said, yes, exactly. I do want that to happen. And she said, would your teacher like you more if you answered all the questions in class, but in the exam you got 70%? Or would they like you more if you were quiet in class, because that's not graded, but you got 100% on the exam? And I said, the latter. And she said, then do that. Perform where it matters. Classroom contributions, particularly at that age and in that time of the 20th century, weren't really valued. Now we say class participation 10%, but the actual thing is still the final paper we submit. In doctoral, postgraduate, and even undergraduate studies, we say class participation 10 to 15%. But what you produce is 60 to 70%, right? So she said that, but it was a struggle for me because I'm very extroverted. I want to share, I want to show off, I want to be this person. That's why I go on stage. I have no qualms about admitting that I like to be the center of attention. I love it. I absolutely do. One of the reasons people ask me, why did you give your first TED talk? I said, because I love being on stage. I love 500 to 600 people silent, fully focused on me. I love it. If you don't like it, you don't have to like it. I love it. So I would love that attention in class as well. And then Mama said this. And I said, what? What does that matter? And she repeated it. She said, what use is answering all the questions in class and then not being able to answer them sufficiently enough on the exam where it matters? So you can be all great in your living room, be the strongest person in your house, but when it comes to deliver, you don't deliver. Then what's the damn point? I think she knows me better than almost anyone in the world. She was seeing tendencies for arrogance, for hubris, for delusions of grandeur. She was seeing those tendencies, and I still have them, but I control them. Most of us have them, some more than others. And she was controlling them. She said, "Look, this whole fanfare. Ooh, I'm popular. Ooh, people like me. Ooh, I'm a great student. None of it matters. What matters is when you deliver. Perform where it matters, not where it just makes you feel good." The same thing happened um, when I was 19. At the age of 19, I was enrolled at Sheffield Hallam University in Sheffield. It's a nice school, but it's overshadowed by University of Sheffield, which is a much bigger and older school. But Sheffield Hallam had a very affordable and a very well structured architecture program, architecture and environmental design. That's where I started my journey into architecture in 2006. Um, and while I was there, knowing what I'm like, obviously I got sucked into politics. Um, and at that age, any critical thinker is on the left side of the spectrum. Yes, I've just patted myself on the back for being a critical thinker. But any critical thinker in their late teens is meant to be on the left. They're meant to believe that education is a human right, healthcare is a right, equal distribution of wealth, the means of production have to be owned by the laborers, for the many, not the few. All of this, any critical thinker at that age would be on that side because they haven't had experience with paying taxes, getting insurance, earning money, competing in the marketplace, buying a house, getting a mortgage, buying a car, blah blah blah. They haven't had that experience. They are coming from more or less an idealistic point of view, which is fair enough and respect worthy. And you see that even today. So at that age, with that understanding, obviously you're on the left. So I was a student campaigner for the Respect Party, which used to be a far left political party led by the Member of Parliament, George Galloway, who I had the pleasure of meeting a few times. And I was a strong campaigner, and I was campaigning all the time, and I was doing all of these things. And I'd give speeches because I'm South Asians, obviously, it would help with the diversity quota. I spoke well, I'm confident, thank God, I'm funny, jovial, and extroverted, so I would always speak to people. So, with the political party, I'd go and speak, and they'd let me speak. But at the end of the day, my speaking, or George's speaking, or us campaigning outside, or leafletting, it didn't drive change. It really didn't. Because at that age, you have all this passion and energy, and you want to protest and you want to feel important by being part of a movement. Now, looking back at it, I can say very openly that in retrospect, I wanted to be of value. That's what one of the prime motivators of going to protest. Otherwise, why would I be protesting something that didn't directly affect me? So it was about the troops in Iraq. It was about the healthcare bill. It was about the budget. It was so many things. This was 2006. It was at that time. I think Gordon Brown's government, Blair, Brown, all that time. Um, so that was happening. Um, and I can look into myself, reflect, and understand, oh, that's what I was doing. Fair enough. I was 19. Um, but I know for a fact that this is only a small part um, of the whole thing. The actual change happens behind closed doors between a few people who in England are still typically old, white, Caucasian gentlemen, with the highest of respect to all of them. I don't see a problem with the structure. It's just how it is for now. And if it changes, it takes time to change. And they make decisions, but agitating on the street really felt like I did something. So my mum would encourage that because she wanted me to give speeches and be public because this is something I love. And I'd come home and I'd tell her all about it, and she'd be like, "Oh, how wonderful. Good." She didn't see it as anything more than me expressing myself. It wasn't about, oh, Ali's going to bring a great change right now. She was like, he's giving speeches, he has all this energy and ideas, and he's just putting them out. Fair enough. Um, because when I was confronted, not on the street, that was easy. When I was confronted by people in positions of power, um, people who have employed me, people I've had the pleasure of meeting, and they'd say, "So, what have you done?" And I'd say, "I've protested," and there's and we've all protested, we've all raised our voice. What have you done? And I said, "Well, I gave speeches," and they were like, "And." So that made me realize that to um, inform political change, protesting is a small part of it. I also understand that the political maneuver or utilizing the right to public assembly and protest is to direct efforts in an understandable and secure domain. So, peaceful protest, you have the right, go and protest. That's something that's encouraged. Violent protest, never encouraged, and I would never encourage it too. But what it does is the peaceful protest pre- prevents the fissure from going out of bounds. And this is my own political observation, but I think a lot of theorists and observers would tell you the same. So if you keep protesting, you feel like you've contributed to society and you never explode. You're allowed to go near the fissure and then it comes down. You go to a protest and it comes down. So I started realizing that after my mom said this, um, and then some employers and people said this, and I said, oh, maybe there's a different way. So this is just a very small part of it. It's a part. I'm not saying it's completely futile, but if I were given two options, one option was lead a great protest, gather people, empower them, make them feel great, or to have the possibility to influence legislation being signed, I would choose the latter. The first one feels great. You feel like Jinnah, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Gandhi. You feel like those great people. But legislation was influenced, but Martin Luther King used to go and meet Lyndon Johnson and JFK. That's where it started to be affected. You can get the public riled up, and then the military is sent in, or the police is sent in. That happens all the time. But real change starts happening in legislation. That's when I thought, oh, perhaps politics or policy is a direction one must follow if one is interested in these things. And at the same time, I was a student of architecture. What business does an architect have in the public sphere? Yes, there is some business, I do say that. But by and large, your business is focusing on the construction site and turning it from nothing into something. Um, but instead, you're out on the streets. And my classmates would say, Ali, why are you studying architecture? You should study politics. And I would say, no, architecture is my ambition, politics is my passion. I would say all these things. At 20, you think you're incredibly smart. Um, so I would say that. And then when the grades came, I didn't score in the top 5%. I think I was in the top 15% of the class. For me, that's a low. Some people might say, oh, top 15, great. For me, no. Even today, no. I'm a high performer. I've been raised to be a high performer. I enjoy performing at the top of the class, at the top of any group. I enjoy it. That's how I'm going to be all the time. So top 15 wasn't good enough. And I was devastated. I was like, oh, I only got one first. I got three, two, ones, that kind of thing. And my mom said, well, you've been spending all this time protesting and in politics and in speaking and doing all of this. And then you sit and do your projects in the last 3 days, which is what a lot of architecture students do, let's be honest. But I was doing that, and I was giving most of my energy to this other thing. And at that age, people come to you and say, wow, you're 20, you're a good speaker, you're from a minority community, you're from a minority religion, we can build a campaign around you. And at 20, people had come to me and said, if you want to stand for councillor next year, we are here to support you. So I came and spoke to my dad about it, I remember. And my dad said, no, not at this age. You have to study first. That thing matters, because that council position will come and maybe it'll go. You just don't have enough life experience. But the study is something you can build upon further. And he was absolutely right. If time could have been managed, I'm sure he would have supported me. But time can't be managed. Being a full-time counselor and a full-time student of architecture, if you're in the social sciences where you have to read and write, then it's doable. But in architecture, it's quite demanding. You can ask any architect. So that would happen there as well. Again, when I went to the British Parliament, when I went to the Oxford Union, when I went to my college's governing committee meetings, every time when I went on the TEDx stage, when I spoke at wherever, before that happened, I would tell my mum, oh, I'm going there, I'm nervous, because I'm nervous before every speech. And she said, well, excellent. Pray, say God's name before you go, practice it enough times, and deliver. Because these are places where your voice, where your ideas, where your passion have to be delivered. That is where it matters. So go and deliver to the best of your ability. Mediocrity is something that mum has never, ever taught us. That's why none of us even abide by it. Oh, yeah, I'm an okay tennis player. No, I'm either a great tennis player or I'm not one. That's how I think. A lot of people may be offended by that or not feel comfortable with that. To each your own. I completely acknowledge your position, but I disagree with it from the core of my soul. So I don't scatter efforts. I focus them, and that's another lesson that Mum has taught me, to scatter focus, and it ties into here. So when meeting people at parties or at meetings or at gatherings, I would go and say, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and oh, I'm doing that, and I've done this and I've done that, and they'd say, wow, and they'd ask me questions, and I'd feel great. I would feel great about myself. Oh, people love me, I'm so popular. And then, because she's my mother, she'd be observing, or she'd hear at least, or I'd go and tell her, well, I told that guy I've done this. And then she'd say, and what did you get from it? And I'd say, well, I told him what I was doing. And she's, yeah, what did that bring you, apart from a few claps? What did that bring you? Did you change his mind? No. Is that person going to give you money? No. Is that person going to give you emotional support? No. Is that person going to give you the time of the day to help you in an effort? No. Then what was the point? What was the point of showing off? So I think she saw this tendency in me, which, believe you me, has taken a long time to get under wraps and really hide and show at the right moment. But she'd say that all the time. And I'd say, you're right. And she'd say, if you want to go and share what you've done, or express, go and speak to a Nobel laureate. Go and speak to a politician. Go and speak to an investor. Go and speak to people who can add value to your life. Don't just show off, because it's useless. There's no point in doing it. And at that time, it was troublesome because I would feel like I want to express and be valued and validated. Um, and I didn't know who these people were. But once you start seeing them and somebody says, "Oh, that's an interesting idea. How about I give you $10,000?" and you start off with it. Okay, yes, yes, let's do. Okay, you're different. Oh, you're an investor. And then you start realizing, oh, people have ulterior motives, people have goals and perspectives that they want to achieve. Absolutely fine. But that lesson helped me understand that. So now, if you see me on the subway, the tube, as we say tube. If you see me on the tube or a bus, um, or a ship or an airplane, I'm very quiet. I have my headphones on. I'm not chatting to the person next to me. I'm not telling them, oh, this is what I do, this is what you do. Focused on my movie, writing in my diary. If there's a problem, for example, this flight back from London to Montreal, the door, London to Montreal, yeah, the door of one of the toilets was broken. So, as an architect, I kind of had an idea of how to get it fixed. So I got up and helped. But I didn't expect, oh, he's fixed the door. Oh, amazing. Of course, it would be lovely. But I didn't expect that. I thought, okay, I can solve the problem. I'll solve the problem and come quietly and sit down. I won't tell people, hey, I fixed that door. No, none of that. It doesn't matter. Close, close all the energy, pack it in where it's not necessary. So when I'm running, all my focus is on me, my breath, my steps, and my direction. I'm not looking at people. I'm not speaking to people. I'm not picking up flowers. I'm not doing any of that. I'm fully focused on the task at hand. Same goes for when I'm walking. I may chat to people, but the goal of the walk is to go to the store, buy the stuff, come back. When I'm at the store, though, I'm gregarious, I'm extroverted, I'm laughing with people, I'm speaking to them. Why? Because I'm building a relationship, I'm building rapport. And then now it is my nature to share that energy at that time. And otherwise, when you're alone, when it's not necessary, close it down. At home, I'm quiet. I'm doing my things. Sometimes I sing, but at home, I'm quiet. I'm saving that energy. But when you see me on a TEDx stage or at the British Parliament or the Oxford Union, it all comes out with full charisma. All of it comes out. And that is what this leads to. Perform where it matters. You decide the when and the where, and then you contribute fully. That is the meaning of life. If you're extroverted everywhere, it doesn't really matter. You can't be extroverted in a desert or a deserted island. Who are you going to speak to? It's unnecessary. So it's collecting your resources and channeling them in a specific direction. That was the central lesson. And I also think this was a huge part that my mom has played in curtailing a tendency towards arrogance, towards hubris, delusions of grandeur, showing off. Ooh, I have a Mustang Shelby 16. All of that. I think she curbed that because that tendency was in me to compete. As the third son, I would always look at my elder brothers and try to compete with them and try to get better than them. So this was one way of doing that. So I think she curtailed it, and she did so very successfully, and I'm ever so grateful to her. But that's enough for today. I think I've been talking for very long. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a wonderful week. I shall see you again.